Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Married Sisters Talk Show. I am your host, Becca Wilson. This show was created to deal with topics and issues that women are facing today. Whether you are married, single, widowed, or divorced, this show is for every sister. Please be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and every Tuesday on our Married Sisters YouTube channel at 12 noon. If you like our show, please subscribe, like, and share.
We are sisters, married sisters, living our best lives, being blessed wives with our misters. We are sisters, we are married sisters.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Married Sisters Talk Show. I am your host, Becca Wilson. Today, we're honoring Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And so we have a special guest on our panel today. She's joined Married Sisters for today to talk about breast cancer. And she's going to share her testimony, her journey with us. And so I want to welcome today to our panel, LaDonna Smith. She is a mother of 2 sons and married to Jonas Smith for 24 years. And so she does have her master's in science of teaching.
Correct.
And we want to say welcome to LaDonna Smith. Welcome, ladies.
Welcome.
Yes. I also have my sisters back in studio with me. I have LaToya Williams, married to Michael Williams, 17 years, 2 beautiful children. Can't forget to mention Milo, because he's very much part of the family. I also have Marsha Shea Davis. She is the self-publishing author of her book, The Cussing Christian. She's married to her lovely husband, Joshua. Over 5 years and 1 lovely daughter, Marsha LaToya. Welcome back to the panel on today. And I do want to send out a special thank you to my husband, Derek Wilson. We're married 3 years, and he's just been such a great supporter of Married Sisters Talk Show. And I personally want to take time to say thank you, Derek Wilson. I love you. And so today we also have viewer questions, and since LaDonna is here, part of Married Sisters, she has to respond to these questions as well. And so we have a viewer question, and that question is, should your spouse have a best friend of the opposite sex? You know, like texting and talking all the time, you know. So that is the question we want to talk about today. So which one of you ladies want to respond to that? And again, we're not experts. We're just giving our opinions, sharing our stories. Who wants to take on that question first?
Well, I guess I can go first. Honestly, I think it depends on the relationship that the husband and wife both have with each other. I would say for my own household, I would not do it out of respect for my husband. I just think that I wouldn't feel comfortable with him spending so much extra time with another female, and I'm sure he would feel the same way about me doing the same thing with a male. So that's my thoughts on that.
That's a very good thought. Marsha, what is your thought, sweetie?
That's a good question.
Isn't that a good question?
Yes. So I'm kind of thinking the same with Sis LaDonna. It definitely is dependent upon the marriage and, you know, what their rules are, whatever they're comfortable with. But certainly for me in my household, that's not something that I would practice, nor is it something that I do practice, just out of respect for my husband. Now what that means, though, is that, you know, if you do have friends, because that's what the question was, of the opposite sex, best friends is different. But if you have a friend of the opposite sex, I don't think it's necessary to just cut everybody off. But just to be mindful of if they're a threat to your marriage. And so for me, at least, I don't have like friends of the opposite sex that I'm texting all hours of the night. We're not talking every day. And if we do talk, you know, it's not about us. You know what I'm saying? So it's definitely either business focused or, you know, education focused or work focused. So there is a focus. And I'm very mindful of if and when we meet so that I'm respecting my husband in our marriage. So that's kind of my take on it.
That's real good.
That's great. Yeah, I definitely agree with both of the answers that we've heard so far. You know, I think we had a question earlier in our show about a cousin that was recently engaged or a friend that was recently engaged and how the friendship had kind of changed. And I think they all, this question and that question, they all kind of coincide. Essentially, if anyone is taking time from that core relationship, whether it's a friend of the opposite sex or whether it is a girlfriend or guy friend that you previously had a relationship, if anything is a danger to that core relationship, that's definitely when we need to take some time and take a pause. So for me, my husband is my best friend. So I don't necessarily need another man to fulfill that position because he is that for me. And I believe that I'm that for him, vice versa. That's what he tells me anyway. So, I think as long as it's, if you think about those relationships that you have, you want to think about, is that a threat to the relationship and the foundation that you and your spouse are building together?
My opinion, that's a very good opinion. My opinion, I ain't having it. Okay. Yeah, I already know. No, but all of you guys, that was a great response because it would, if you had a best friend that was of the opposite sex, so it's like you are confiding in this person more than your husband or your wife. You're spending that intimate time when you should be spending it with your spouse. Learning each other, knowing each other. There is I had presented this question at work, and one of the ladies also was like, well, what if we were best friends in high school? And shouldn't he understand this? But I was like, that's a good question. So what if you were best friends in high school? I still, like you're saying, the dynamics of it should change a little bit, right? And it should be both of you guys as best friend, and both of you guys all should be hanging out and together and not so much of that talking and texting all the time. I'd have to question that for real. Like I said, to me, it's disrespectful. So that's why I said I wouldn't have it, and out of respect to my husband, I just wouldn't do it. Yeah. It just don't make sense to me. Yeah. Okay. And so, which brings me to another question. What do you ladies think about Facebook? How should they be acting on Facebook? Because that's something that can get out of hand. And that's something that can be used for all kinds of purposes. And so I would say, one, I know a person on Facebook. We were friends, and I don't really know them personally, but however, I knew his wife for a long time. And they would post pictures, provocative pictures of other women. And I'm like, well, what kind of sense does this make? And I chimed in one time. They got mad and unfriended me, but it is what it is. I'm like, that don't look nothing like your wife. And, and they were in ministry too. And his response was like, well, I don't see anything wrong with sharing beauty. Black beauty is what they said. And I'm like, I believe the bottom line would be lust, but that's my opinion. So what do you guys think about, how to behave even on Facebook, social media?
I feel like that's a great question. I feel like ultimately, it just kind of goes back to what are the rules in that relationship. Some people, I don't practice open relationships, but some people practice open relationships, and some people have other people, and so if their spouse is okay with that, then it's really dependent on the person. And so really just making sure that you have that line of communication with your spouse and that y'all respect each other, so that if you are posting something, hopefully your spouse knows, but it's not up to us to say, hey girl, did you see your husband? Like that's their business and that's their thing. So that's at least my perception of that. They should know what's going on, but personally for myself, I'm going to respect my husband and my behavior on social media. I'm not posting pictures of males, females, or anybody half naked. Like, I'm going to respect my spouse enough to represent myself well because we're a unit. That's so right. If I'm posting something, then I'm representing him, and I have to think about all that he's involved in. I'm making us both look bad, and then my child. I'm a mother, you know what I'm saying? So everything that I do, I'm making my family look bad, so I make sure that I'm really mindful of how I represent myself on social media because people will paint a picture from the stuff that they see and they'll assume. So I'm really mindful. I really don't put my family on social media. So you have to know me to know what my family's doing. And I know people my age, my dad and I were just talking about that. People my age put everything on social media. Like, people can come find you based off what you put on your social media. So I don't want my babies on social media, my husband, because I don't need any women looking. and I don't need anybody trying to find my daughter. So I mean, that's just my perception.
Say posted 2 hours after we left the restaurant.
Exactly.
So don't be posting it right now. You know, I may be coming.
Right.
I'm looking for you, bro.
For real.
What do you guys think? Thoughts? I'm sorry.
I have to say I don't post a lot on Facebook. I try to make sure anything that I do post is something that's positive. I have put my family on there, but it's always in a positive light, like you were saying, in a light that will respect myself as well as my family. So, you know, things like graduation, you know, birthday party, something like that. And I always try to be mindful. I don't post anything like vacation while I'm away. I've heard some scary stories about people getting their homes broken into because they would post things basically in real time, and people would know all their business. And these are older people, I'm sure not your age. And you just have to make good decisions. And also, I would say, be careful for, let's say all those snakes that come back from the past. They see you and, oh, you're doing well and this and that, and they want to try to, you know, find you and friend you and this and that. No, don't do it. Don't do it.
That's so true. And you brought up a good point. I didn't even think of that. You know, posting while you're on vacation, you know, somebody stalking you, they're going to break into your home and stuff. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah,
Wow.
It happened to someone.
Wow.
I definitely agree. I think social media can be a slippery slope, and not just in what we're posting, because you can have private conversations on social media. So just, you know, just like texting or any other thing that someone can do that we were just talking about in regards to this best friend relationship. You know, so I think we really have to be mindful, again, as Sister Marche said, you know, what's the comfort level of our spouse? And I know with what I've seen of some just the new things that have been added to social media, it's kind of turned into a pay-for-play type of situation for some of the, you know, more illicit type things that are available through social media platforms. So, you know, I would take some time to maybe watch The Social Experiment. I don't know if you guys have heard of that documentary, but essentially what they're doing, they did a study on how enticed they utilize our psychology to entice us to click on different things. And they're looking at every click that we take to know what to feed to us on our social media platforms. And they've taken a psychological approach to draw us in deeper and deeper. So I think that we really, again, want to really evaluate not just how much time we're using it, social media as parents, but the access that our kids have. And again, for relationships, as Sister Becca mentioned, people will try to slide in from the past to that DM, you know?
For real.
Yeah.
They'll try to slide in. So I think we just have to be mindful of our spouses in regards to social media as well.
Wow.
And can I just add, I just wanted to piggyback on a point that you just made. It's so funny, I was just looking up cars, just random things for my son. I kid you not, maybe like 10 minutes or so later, I happened to get on Facebook. Everything that I was looking at popped up in my feed. So it's like you said, they are tracking everything that we want or everything that we look at. And it's kind of scary. It's kind of scary.
What I noticed, I thought this was the craziest thing. My daughter, she'd been doing the virtual school up until last week. So she went back to school. Last week was her first week back. And now that she's in 6th grade, she's in band. And so we had bought a clarinet for her to use in band. Now, I had not looked up anything about clarinet. My husband did the purchase. But there was clarinet advertisements on my clarinet tutoring advertisements on my social media feed. So they're definitely really in tune with what we're doing, how we're spending our money. Like every single thing is feeding into one, and we think that it's an independent thing that we have control over. But no, they're programming and feeding in information in a very sneaky way. So, yeah, check out The Social Experiment if you haven't seen it. It's really worth kind of watching.
Social Experiment. Yeah, that's something to really check into, because even when you swipe your card, I remember I swiped our card somewhere and I got an email about it. I was at a restaurant and it emailed me. I didn't give them my email. So you're right. Everything's like being linked up, and that's scary.
It is.
And notice places where they want you to always use your chip. They don't want you to use cash money. That's another sign.
Yeah. Wow. Well, those are really great responses, ladies. Again, we're going into talking about Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I have a wonderful guest here, LaDanya, like I was mentioning, and we want to begin to ask you questions. We want to ask you, when were you diagnosed and at what age?
I was diagnosed at age 39, so,
Oh, that's young.
but I've heard stories a lot younger, but still 39 is fairly young.
Yeah, because I mean, when I was doing some research, because I wanted to, look into breast cancer, because we hear it, we hear about it, don't really understand the seriousness of it, and I was just really amazed that this enemy of against women, breast cancer, about 1 in 8 women, they're
Yes.
saying, will develop an invasive breast cancer in their lifetime. And I'm like, 1 in 8, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
And that's a lot to kind of be ignorant of, breast cancer, and to think, this is something that won't happen, to us or to someone that you may know. And so, I was just really amazed at that, because I didn't know the numbers of that 1 in 8. And when you said you were 39, I also saw in Black women that it's really high
It is.
for those 40 and under.
Yes.
So is that right? 40 and under in Black women compared to white women. It's really high. I think it was like 85%, something like that. So that's
There's, and I might be jumping ahead of myself, but my general surgeon who actually did my mastectomy, I actually took the BRCA 1 and 2 test because of family history. It's so strong in my family, and she really thinks that it's something with African American women, because as strong as my family history was, I tested negative for all the genetic testing. And she said every patient that she had that was similar to me, African American, strong history, we all tested negative. So she always wondered if it was something to do with being African American. I just never forgot that.
Yeah, wow, that is something. So what stage were you diagnosed with?
I was diagnosed with DCIS, which that was stage 0. So it hadn't gotten out of the ducts yet, so I had caught it extremely early. So DCIS basically means early stage of cancer. But by the time I had surgery, I was in stage 1, and it kind of happened quickly. And some had gotten out into the ducts to the point where I had to get some lymph nodes removed. So I'm blessed that I really caught it extremely early and was able to move on it quickly.
Yes.
So I know you mentioned that you had done some testing, just recommended based on your family history, but how was the breast cancer actually detected?
Funny story. I know it was nothing but the Holy Spirit just guiding me to go get an annual mammogram. And the funny thing is, I had 2 consecutive years with negative, no problems or whatnot. In Ohio, I could have just opted to not go and, put it off for another year. But something just told me, well, just go ahead and go and just, stay on track, because I'm a teacher, so I usually have everything set up in the summer so I can go. And I'm so glad that I went and got it done, because my OBGYN had seen something irregular when I got my mammogram. And so they immediately scheduled a biopsy for me. And so it was detected through the biopsy.
Wow.
So how did you feel when you first received the news just about the breast cancer and the result?
Well, I never forget my OBGYN, and she had delivered both of my children, so I had her for a long time, so we had a really strong relationship. And she called me, she talks really sweet and soft, like, LaDonna, I want you to go sit down. So I sat down on the couch, and then she said, honey, it came back positive, you do have cancer. And I just remember, I just start bawling and crying, and I happened to be at home by myself when I got the news. And so I just kind of had a moment, and I broke down really bad. And as soon as I got off the phone with her, I immediately called my husband, and then I immediately called my mother and my grandmother and let them know what I had found out.
Wow. So did you have a support network? You said your mom, but did they have a support network for you, a sisterhood?
Yes. I had several support groups, actually. The hospital set you up with groups that you could go and talk to if you wanted to. And then also through my church, which was it was just awesome. My pastor, he calls people up for altar prayer. And right before my surgery, you know, he called me up and he said what I was getting ready to do or whatnot. And then just different mothers from the church, ushers, everybody who had already been through it. So I kind of had a church sisterhood. So they would tell me
that's
different
awesome.
things, and they always would check on me or whatnot. And then I just have a core group of girlfriends that, you know, they've been through everything with me. It's only 4 of us, kind of like this. And so, you know, they were there for everything, day of surgery. And then I also had strong support from my coworkers. They even threw me a party for life. So I'm
yes.
really blessed. I have multiple support groups.
Wow. It sounds like you have a really, really strong support network
do.
around you, and
I
that's just
do.
awesome and amazing to hear. What would you say to people that feel like they don't have that, and what resources could you maybe recommend or some suggestions that you could give to women that are hearing this news and may feel like they're in search or in need of that type of support?
I would probably first start with your doctor, your general surgeon. She was the first person that actually gave me a pamphlet of all the support groups that were right on site with the hospital. You could also call the Komen, Susan G. Komen, and you can find out different support groups that are within your city or your immediate area. They can hook you up. I would try even the women's, YWCA. I believe they have some support groups for people who are in need of help. And like I said, even church, you never know who will come up and support you, but you got to be willing to say something. You can't hold it in. So that's a good, like I said, I think the first place to start would be the doctor, because they have multiple resources that they can point you at from, you know, the beginning.
Yeah, because there's a danger of holding it in and not wanting to really shine light what the enemy's trying to do, you think? Because, that will play on your mind.
Right.
You know, if you don't want to tell anybody, don't want to have that support, I can see, you know, where the depression will come in and yeah, and the stress, you know. So I think, like you were saying, that support group is definitely key. You know, like you said, your church was calling you, checking on you, and I know your husband was just a tremendous.
Yes, he was.
Oh my God.
Oh, lots of pink roses. Yes.
Oh.
He really was. He was awesome. And it was so nice. I'll never forget when actually the initial surgery, it took longer than they thought it was going to take. It was actually like 6 hours. And I just never forget when I woke up, you know, the room was all dark. I didn't really, you know, I was kind of out of it or whatever. But I never forget, I looked over, my pastor was there, and he just talked to me. He was holding my hand. He was praying to me. You know, he stroked my head like, baby, how you doing? And, you know, you were down for a while and this and that. So it just really made me feel good. And before I even went into surgery, I kid you not, I had the whole waiting room with my people.
Yes.
I had family that drove up from here. All my girlfriends, my crew was there.
Yes.
My husband's side of the family, very Christian-oriented family. All of his grandmother and all of her sisters were there. So that's all of the aunts. You know about the aunts.
Yes.
So we had prayer in the room before in the lobby area before I even went back there. So it was awesome. And I also, when I found out, like I said, I broke down for a minute, but something, I knew I was a spirit, just clicked in me. I just got myself together, and I just had a positive attitude. I just started working, like, okay, who do I need to call? Let me get this doctor set up, give me an oncologist, give me a plastic surgeon. I don't know, and I got everything done over my summer break. Like I said, I'm a teacher. From the time I was diagnosed to the time I went back to school, I got everything done.
Wow.
So that was nothing but,
Yeah. That was nothing but, like
It
you said, the
was.
Holy Spirit leading you to do that. That is phenomenal.
It is, just to find
You know?
all the right fits as far as your doctors, because your support team will also include your different doctors that you need. You know, you need an oncologist, and like I needed a plastic surgeon because, like I said, I got both of them removed. And my plastic surgeon happened to be right there on the same floor as my general surgeon, and they were friends.
Wow.
So she said, well, I think you like him and this and what I really like, he's an African-American male, so that was good for my boys to see. So I was
Yes.
thinking about all of that.
Right.
So, yeah.
So
Wow.
can I ask a question here? So you're saying you had a double mastectomy?
Yes.
Can you talk or maybe share a little bit about the feeling or the decision to go that route and what that was like, and even any implications or conversations not in detail, but you may have had with your husband, or kind of how that affected you as a woman.
Oh, sure. Actually, when I was first diagnosed, it was only found in the right breast. And because, like I said, my strong family history, I didn't go into it, but my mother, she's gotten one breast removed. My grandmother had a severe calcium buildup to the point we thought it was cancer for a while, but it was actually calcium. But my grandmother's mother, so that's my great-grandmother, she had ovarian cancer, and my grandmother's sister had ovarian. So that's why I said it was multiple forms of cancer.
Wow.
So anyway, to get back to your initial question, it was located in my right side, but because of the family history, I just went ahead and opted to get them both off because I didn't want the mental stress of always worrying, will it come back? Will it come back? Will it go into the, the nipple tissue or the ducts on the other side? And I remember my family here, my mother, my grandmother, they were kind of like, why are you doing that? And you only need to get one. I'm like, no, because I told my mother, I don't want to end up like you where you've only got one. And then she was on this medicine called tamoxifen. And back in the day, you used to have to take that for 10 years. After, your diagnosis and surgery and things, But I didn't want to have to deal with the medicine. I didn't want to have to deal with the worry. And I talked to my husband about it. He was all on board with whatever I wanted to do, however I felt. And then my chances went to below, it was 0.0 something if I opted to get them both off. So that was just, the icing on the cake. And then not to be funny, but I said, well, I can get some nice ones and they can just be even.
Lift it.
I mean, because think about it, you could just get you a set that's the same.
All right.
That's what I did.
Right. Wow. And so you had a strong family history of it, but when I was reading about it, it said that a large percentage doesn't have a family history of it. It was on Susan Komen.
Susan G. Coleman's site.
Yeah. And I was like, well, okay, so then that would have made sense with the 1 in 8 that would get the invasive breast cancer, that a lot of people get it with no family history. And so that's even more so, like you were saying, hey, get those exams, do the self. Because were you doing self exams?
No, like I said, it was honestly through the mammogram, and like I said, they saw something right away. And the funny thing is, when they did the biopsy, I'll never forget, that was pretty painful because the needle, it was so long, they had to go all the way down, basically to my ribs, because it was so tiny. I can't remember. She said almost like a little bigger than a grain of salt, a couple grains of salt put together, but they could see it. Oh, that's amazing. So I know. Just to find it that small, that's why I said it's so important. Don't skip anything. You need to go. Even if you feel scared, you never know what's going to happen. Like in my case, I had no chemo, no radiation, no loss of hair, nothing, no medicine. I just got it taken care of quickly.
Wow.
That's a blessing.
Yeah, I mean, that is. Really, and for, with the technology like that, to see it almost like a grain of salt, you're saying?
Yes.
Wow.
I do remember, like I said, it did hurt when they did the biopsy. That was just, but now I understand why, because it was so far down. But it was worth it.
Oh, yeah.
It was worth it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Hi again, this is Becca Wilson. I truly hope you have enjoyed our show today. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Until next time, you be blessed and have a great day.